Listen, everybody in this room has a vision of who they could be. You feel it late at night, early in the morning, in the quiet moments when nobody's watching. There's a version of you that's sharper, more disciplined, unapologetically focused, and aligned with your purpose. But there's a gap between the person you are and the person you know you're supposed to become. And that gap won't close on motivation alone. It won't close on your best days. It closes because you make a decision. You force yourself to take action even when it's uncomfortable, inconvenient, and scary. Tonight we're going to talk about 6 keys that separate people who talk from people who execute. Because the world doesn't reward intention, it rewards movement. You know, one of the biggest lies we tell ourselves is that we're waiting for the right time. We convince ourselves that once we get a little more money, once life slows down, once we feel more confident, once the stars line up just right, then we'll take that first step. Then we'll chase that dream. Then we'll finally go after what's been calling us. But if you've lived enough real life, you already know that the right time is a myth. It's an illusion our mind creates to protect us from stepping into the unknown. The truth? Perfect conditions never show up. Life doesn't hand out green lights on every block. Most of the growth you're looking for, most of the greatness you say you want, lives on the other side of uncertainty. Look around you. Every person who ever built something meaningful had to start in the middle of chaos, doubt, fear, and lack. Nobody had the full blueprint the first day. Nobody had all the connections, resources, clarity, or confidence. They just started. And because they started, they learned what they needed to know along the way. Starting is the teacher. Motion is the mentor. Experience is the curriculum. You can watch 1,000 YouTube videos, read 100 books, or sit in the same room with successful people for years. But if you don't take your own step, you'll stay in the same place, thinking, dreaming, planning, but never becoming. I've seen people with talent, passion, and brilliance wait so long for the perfect time that the moment passed them by. They watched others with half the resources and half the skills succeed simply because they moved. Life doesn't reward potential, it rewards execution. You can have the best idea in the world, but if it only lives in your head, it's just imagination. Imagine a young entrepreneur out on a sidewalk with nothing but a folding table and a vision. No capital, no mentor, no marketing team, no investors cheering them on. Just belief, just willingness, just motion. That's how so many real success stories start. Not with comfort, not with clarity, but with courage. Some of you think you need a studio before you record, a storefront before you sell, a degree before you teach, a team before you lead. But what if the universe is waiting for you to move first? What if the resources only show up after you begin? See, momentum attracts support. When people see you serious enough to build with scraps, that's when they show up with bricks. When people see you betting on yourself, that's when they want to invest. But nobody invests in a person that's all talk and no action. Nobody believes in a dream you don't even believe in enough to start. Let me share something real. The most dangerous place you can be is stuck in preparation. Planning feels productive. Research feels like progress. Watching others win feels inspiring, but without action, all of that becomes mental entertainment, and the longer you stay in that getting ready stage, the harder it becomes to break out of it. The mind starts creating more excuses, more fears, more doubts. You start thinking the window has closed or that you missed your chance, but you didn't miss it, you just never stepped into it. The Harvard Business Review study once said that the #1 regret people have later in life isn't what they did, it's what they didn't do. Not the risks they took, but the ones they never gave themselves permission to take. They regret the dreams they buried because they were scared to look foolish. They regret the talents they never explored because they were focused on what people might think. Don't let that be your story. You owe it to yourself to at least try. You owe it to the younger version of you, the one who believed anything was possible. I want you to think back to a time you acted without overthinking. Maybe as a kid you wanted to learn how to ride a bike. You didn't wait for the perfect bike, the perfect weather, or someone to write you a manual. You jumped on, fell, scraped your knee, got up, tried again, and eventually you rode. That's how everything in life works. You learn by doing. You grow by trying. You gain confidence through repetition, not contemplation. People love to say, I'm waiting until I feel ready. Let me tell you something. Readiness is a result of action, not a prerequisite. The fear doesn't leave before you start. The clarity doesn't arrive before you begin. The confidence doesn't show up before you take the leap. Those things are built through movement. You start scared, you start unprepared, you start with shaky hands, limited tools, and a whole lot of uncertainty. And somewhere along the path, showing up again and again, you become ready. Even right now, someone with less talent than you is winning simply because they said yes to the opportunity you keep postponing. Someone with fewer resources is building the business you keep journaling about. Someone with fewer connections is becoming the person you know you're capable of being. Not because they're better, not because they're luckier, but because they moved. They took the first step, even when it didn't feel like enough. And once they took that step, the second step revealed itself, then the third, and the path began to form. That's how life works. You don't get the whole staircase, you get one step, one move, one decision. And once you choose motion, life starts meeting you halfway. The opportunity you're hoping for, the people you're praying for, the breakthrough you're waiting on, they're all waiting on you to start. You don't need everything. Start with the $50, 0 cents. Start with your phone. Start with borrowed equipment, with free knowledge, with what's in your hands right now. Your first version won't be perfect, and it doesn't have to be. Perfection isn't the goal. Progress is. Think about this. 30 days of real action will teach you more about your dream than 3 years of overthinking, self-doubt, and planning hypotheticals. You'll learn what works and what doesn't. You'll learn who you are when things don't go smooth. You'll learn how capable you truly are once you stop negotiating with fear and start choosing movement. And if you fail, good. That means you tried something real. Failure is feedback. Failure is growth in disguise. So let this be the moment you stop waiting. Not tomorrow, not Monday, not next year. If it's on your heart, start now. Your future self is watching you and hoping you don't stall again. The world doesn't need a perfect version of you. It needs a committed version of you. One who's willing to begin before they have it all figured out. One who's willing to believe in the power of the first step. A lot of people think motivation is the key to success. Like if they could just stay inspired all the time, they would finally reach their goals. But motivation is temporary. It comes and goes like a good mood. It's easy to feel fired up when you first start something new. It's easy to make promises to yourself at midnight when you're full of ideas, or after you watch a powerful video or hear something that lights a fire in your chest. But the real test of your character isn't who you are when you're motivated. It's who you are when that motivation disappears. Motivation is a spark. It gives you that initial energy to get moving, but a spark alone can't keep a fire burning. What keeps the fire alive is discipline. Discipline is the engine that keeps going long after the excitement fades. It's what shows up when your mind tells you to stay in bed, when your body is tired, when the world feels heavy, when nobody's clapping for you, when the results are slow, and when you feel like you're putting in work with nothing to show for it. Discipline is what separates dreams from reality. There will be mornings when your alarm goes off and you'll lay there thinking, not today. There will be days when life hits you with unexpected problems and your goals start feeling like extra weight instead of a blessing. There will be seasons when quitting looks more appealing than continuing, because continuing means effort, sacrifice, and discomfort. That's the moment discipline steps in. That's the moment where you prove to yourself what you're really made of. Anybody can keep going when they're in the mood for it, but the ones who win are the ones who keep going even when they're not. Think about the people who inspire you, the ones who built something from nothing, who mastered their craft, who changed their situation, their family, their legacy. They didn't rise because they were motivated every day. They rose because they built habits that didn't depend on how they felt. They trained their mind like a muscle, conditioned their actions like routine, and kept showing up until consistency became a part of them. They didn't wait for inspiration to hit. They created systems that held them accountable. Success isn't about intensity. It's about consistency. Some people go hard for 3 days, burn out, and then quit. The great ones may not go the hardest every day, but they show up every day. They know that the small repeated actions are what create the big change. You don't get in shape from one intense workout. You get in shape from choosing to move your body even on the days you don't feel like it. You don't build a business from one burst of creativity. You build it from steady progress, boring tasks, late nights, early mornings, and a commitment to the bigger picture. There's a study from University College London that shows it takes an average of 66 days to build a habit. Not 6 days, not 2 weeks, 66. That means you might wake up for weeks and still not feel different. You might put in work for months and still not see the transformation yet. Most people quit in that messy middle space where the excitement is gone, but the results haven't shown up. That's where discipline matters most. That's where the future version of you is either built or abandoned. Discipline isn't something you're born with. It's something you strengthen over time. You train it like you train your body. The more you practice doing what you said you'd do, the stronger your self-trust becomes. And let's talk about self-trust, because that's a currency people don't value enough. Every time you break a promise to yourself, you weaken your belief in you. Every time you say, I'll start tomorrow, and don't, a piece of you stops believing your own words. But every time you show up, especially when you don't feel like it, you teach your mind that you can count on you. That builds confidence, clarity, and inner strength that nobody can take away from you. When you trust yourself, you become unstoppable. A lot of people will spend their whole life trying to build discipline the wrong way. They'll say, I'm going to change everything tomorrow. They try to transform overnight, thinking they can flip a switch and become a whole new person on January 1st or after a motivational moment. But discipline doesn't grow in extremes. It grows in repetition. It grows in the small daily choices you make when nobody's watching. The little decisions, waking up when you said you would, getting that reading done, putting in that hour of work, saying no to distractions. Those create the rhythm that shapes your life. Discipline gives you freedom. It sounds backwards, but it's true. When you're disciplined, you're not controlled by impulses, emotions, or circumstances. You gain control over your time, your habits, your money, your mind, your future. You stop being a slave to how you feel in the moment, and you start living based on your standards and intentions. Discipline turns chaos into order, dreams into plans, and plans into results. Without discipline, your life becomes reactive and unstable, always dependent on temporary motivation. Think about a young athlete training before they're famous. Nobody's cheering for them. Nobody's writing articles about them. Nobody's posting highlights of their grind at 5 a.m., dragging their body out of bed to train while their friends are sleeping. There's no applause in the dark. But that discipline in the unseen hours is exactly what creates the moment where the world finally pays attention. People call it talent or luck when they finally see the spotlight, but it was discipline behind the curtain that made the stage moment possible. And look, discipline doesn't mean perfection. You're human, you'll slip, you'll have off days, you'll miss reps. What matters is not never falling, it's refusing to stay down. It's getting back on track faster. It's being committed to the long game, knowing that a bad day doesn't erase your progress. Winners don't stay consistent because they never mess up. They stay consistent because they never quit. So ask yourself, what is one habit you can commit to that would elevate your life if you did it daily? Not 10 habits, not a whole new lifestyle, just one, something non-negotiable. It could be waking up earlier. It could be reading for 30 minutes a day. It could be exercising, meditating, practicing your craft, creating content, or building your business for an hour every day. One habit done daily will change your identity, because once you prove to yourself that you can master one habit, it becomes easier to master another, and then another. Pick something and lock into it. No excuses. No negotiating with your feelings. No, I'll start next week. Start now. Make the commitment small enough to stick and powerful enough to shift you. The moment you stop waiting for motivation and start training your discipline, everything in your life changes. Your results, your confidence, your mindset, your future. A lot of people don't fail because they're not capable. They fail because they look at their goals as one giant mountain and convince themselves it's impossible to climb. That feeling of overwhelm kills more dreams than lack of talent ever will. The vision is big, but the approach is blurry, and when something feels too big, too far, too heavy, the mind chooses the easiest response: avoidance. Not because you don't want it, but because your brain is wired to protect you from what seems like a threat. A dream that feels massive can trigger fear instead of excitement, stress instead of strategy. That's why so many people quit before they even start. They keep thinking about the finish line instead of the first step. They stare at the top of the mountain and forget that the only way to reach it is one step at a time. You don't leap to success. You walk there inch by inch, day by day. The small steps look insignificant when you compare them to the big outcome you want, but those small steps compound. They stack. They build momentum, and eventually they turn into something powerful. Think about your biggest goals right now. Maybe you want to build a business, get your body right, fix your finances, write a book, change your career, or elevate your mindset. The mistake most people make is focusing only on the result. I need 6 figures. I need to lose 40 pounds. I need to write 300 pages. Those statements don't inspire action. They create pressure. They make you feel behind before you even begin. But when you break them down into pieces that match your daily capacity, the impossible starts to look realistic. It becomes something you can see yourself doing today instead of someday. Imagine wanting to make $100,000, 0 cents in a year. That number sounds huge to a lot of people. It feels like a different world. But when you break it down, it becomes $8,333, 0 cents a month. That still might seem like a stretch. Break it down further and you get $1,923, 0 cents a week. Still pushing it? Break it down again. $274, 0 cents a day. Now the question shifts from how do I make $100, 0 cents K to how can I make $274, 0 cents today? That question creates action. That question activates creativity. That question builds hustle. Or let's say you want to lose 40 pounds. That number feels like a battle. It feels like months of struggle. But losing 40 pounds is not a single effort. It's losing 1 pound a week for 40 weeks. 1 pound a week happens when you make small daily choices. Drink more water, walk 30 minutes, cut the extra sugar, sleep better. 1 pound a week doesn't require perfection. It requires consistency. Anyone can stay locked in for 1 week. And if you can do 1 week, you can stack them. Before you know it, you look back and the old you is gone. Same with writing a book. People get overwhelmed because they imagine themselves trying to write a masterpiece. They think they need to sit down and write a full chapter every session. But 1 page a day consistently is a book in a year. 1 page, something you could write in 10 to 20 minutes. You don't need 2 hours of creative genius every day. You just need to show up long enough to complete that 1 page. The magic isn't in writing 10 pages once. It's in writing 1 page a day until it's done. The secret is understanding that small actions done repeatedly create transformations so big that people call them overnight success. But nothing about it is overnight. It's daily work compounding until the results are too loud to ignore. If you clock in 1 hour a day toward a skill, a business, a craft, or a passion, you'll have 365 hours invested by the end of the year. Most people won't give 1 hour a day to their dreams, but they'll give 4 hours a day to social media, gossip, or distractions. It's not that they don't have time. Their priorities aren't aligned with their goals. A lot of folks underestimate the power of awareness and tracking. When you track your progress, you make your growth visible. You feel the momentum. You see your numbers, your weight, your habits, your savings, your content, whatever it is, moving in the right direction. Progress motivates, results inspire, and the brain loves evidence. When you can see even small progress, your belief grows. And once belief grows, consistency becomes easier. Think about how athletes record every workout, every rep, every improvement. Think about entrepreneurs who track their sales, engagement, conversions, customers, and growth. Think about students who track their grades and study time. The act of writing it down, measuring it, checking in, it keeps you honest. It keeps you intentional. It turns your dream into something you manage like a real project, not a wish. Most people repeat the same year over and over because they set big goals with no plan and no system. A goal without a breakdown is just a fantasy. A goal with a breakdown becomes a roadmap. And once you build a roadmap, all you have to do is follow the route daily. Your yearly goals must become monthly, weekly, and daily targets so you wake up knowing exactly what to do. Not guessing, not hoping, not reacting to the day with no structure. There's power in shrinking the gap between where you are and what you need to do today. If your dream feels too big, scale your focus down until it feels doable. If the weekly goal feels heavy, break it down into a daily action. If the daily action feels like too much, break it into something you can do in 10 minutes. You are not weak for starting small. You are smart for doing what it takes to stay consistent. When you break it down, you trick your mind into seeing the journey as manageable. The fear gets smaller. The task becomes less intimidating. Your brain stops fighting you and starts supporting you. And once you build a streak, 3 days, 5 days, 10 days, you'll feel something that pushes you forward. Momentum. Once momentum kicks in, even on hard days, you won't want to break your streak. You won't want to let the previous version of you down. You become accountable to your future. Someone out there is sitting on a life-changing idea, but it feels too big, so they never start. Someone has a book inside them, but hasn't written the first page. Someone has a business plan, but hasn't taken the first step. Someone has a body they want to feel proud of, but hasn't taken the first walk. Not because they can't, but because the vision feels far away. If they just zoomed in on what they can do today, everything would shift. The key is simple. Break your goals into actions you can complete daily, and then show up even on days you feel tired, even when life isn't perfect, even when motivation is gone. You don't need to do everything today, just something. And if you do something every day, your future becomes inevitable. Your progress becomes unstoppable. One day you'll look back and realize that the mountain moved, not because you jumped to the top, but because you climbed one step at a time, over and over, until the view changed. A lot of people never take their shot, not because they don't have talent, not because they don't have ideas, but because they're terrified of what failing will look like. They're scared of being judged, scared of people laughing, scared of falling short in public. And that fear becomes a cage. It keeps them frozen in the same spot for years, sometimes for life. They convince themselves they're protecting their pride, but what they're really doing is sacrificing their purpose. Because avoiding failure doesn't keep you safe, it keeps you stuck. What most people don't understand is that failure is not the opposite of success. Failure is a requirement for success. It's part of the process. You can't learn to walk without falling. You can't learn to speak without messing up your words. You can't master anything without making mistakes along the way. But somewhere between childhood and adulthood, people start believing the lie that failing means they're not good enough. They forget that every skill they have today was earned through trial and error. Failing isn't a sign that you're weak. It's a sign that you're trying to grow. Failure is information, it's data, it's feedback. It's the universe showing you what doesn't work so you can find what does. When a scientist runs an experiment and gets a result that wasn't expected, they don't say, "I'm embarrassed, I quit." They study the result, they learn from it, they make adjustments. That's how breakthroughs are born. Success works the exact same way. You're not supposed to get everything right on the first attempt. You're supposed to evolve through every attempt. Think about anyone who ever built something impactful. Innovators, creators, leaders, athletes, entrepreneurs. Every single one of them has failed more times than most people have even tried. They failed on small stages. They failed on big stages. They failed when nobody was watching. They failed when everybody was watching. What separates them isn't perfection. It's resilience. It's the ability to fall, sit with the pain, learn from it, and then get back up with more clarity. They didn't let embarrassment stop them. They didn't let people's opinions paralyze them. They stayed locked in on the long game. People praise the success story, but overlook the chapters that came before it. They see the glory, but not the grind. They see the finished product, but not the drafts thrown away. They see the confidence, but not the nights filled with doubt. Nobody claps for you when you're in the stage of trial and error. The world is quiet when you're failing, but that silence is where champions are built. The ones who keep going through that silence are the ones we eventually celebrate. Let me paint the picture of a young artist. He dropped project after project, 3 in a row, and the world barely blinked at any of them. No viral moment, no big host sign, no sold out shows, just low numbers, criticism, and silence. Most people would have let that crush them. They would have said, maybe this isn't for me. They were retreated into comfort, convinced themselves the dream wasn't realistic, and settled for something smaller. But he didn't fold. He studied why those projects didn't connect. He learned the business side, improved the craft, refined his sound, tested new approaches, and kept showing up. Eventually, because he stayed consistent through the seasons where nobody cared, he built a real following. Loyal people who respected the journey, not just the success. His failure wasn't a dead end. It was a training ground for the success that came later. That's how growth looks. It's messy. It's humbling, it's uncomfortable. You'll lose money, lose time, lose relationships, lose sleep. You'll experience embarrassment, doubt, confusion, and frustration, but every setback carries a lesson if you're willing to look for it. Failure doesn't punish you, it teaches you. It shows you your blind spots, your weaknesses, your gaps, and once you see them, you can fix them. You can come back sharper, stronger, wiser. The people who avoid failure never develop that wisdom. They stay the same because they never give themselves the chance to transform. They build imaginary scenarios in their heads. What if I fail? What if people laugh? What if I look stupid? But the question that really matters is, what if you succeed? What if this risk changes your life? What if the thing you're scared to try is the doorway to everything you've been praying for? You don't get to access that reality without facing failure first. Failure also builds character in a way comfort never will. When you fail and choose to rise instead of quit, you develop grit. You develop self-belief. You develop a relationship with yourself where you learn, I can survive disappointment and keep going. That inner strength becomes your edge. And once you've been through enough setbacks and bounce back, you become dangerous. Not to others, but to your excuses. Because at that point, you know you're built for it. You've seen yourself endure. You trust your ability to adapt. One of the biggest lessons is that failure teaches you detachment from ego. A lot of the fear around failing is rooted in how we think we look to others, but the moment you stop living for approval, failure loses its power to scare you. You stop performing for people and start building for purpose. You stop playing it safe to protect your image and start playing to win. You understand that your growth matters more than someone else's opinion. And the funny part, the same people who judge you for failing will admire you when you succeed. So why let them dictate your journey? You don't have to love failure, but you do have to respect it. You have to welcome it the way a student welcomes a teacher. You have to understand that each attempt that doesn't go as planned is a stepping stone. Success is made of stacked failures that taught you what not to do again. Every great story has chapters where things fall apart. That's what makes the comeback part so powerful. So instead of asking, what if I fail? Ask, what will I learn if I do? That question changes everything. It shifts you from fear to growth. It gives you permission to try, to experiment, to take risks. It opens the door to progress. And once you start viewing failure as part of the journey instead of something to avoid, you unlock a version of yourself that becomes unstoppable. Because the moment failure stops intimidating you is the moment you become dangerous to mediocrity. One of the most life-changing truths you'll ever learn is this: who you spend your time with is shaping who you're becoming, whether you realize it or not. You can have all the ambition in the world, but if you surround yourself with people who are comfortable crawling when you're trying to fly, sooner or later, that energy will wear you down. You can't soar in a circle that's afraid of heights. You can't talk elevation with people who only understand limitation. Your environment is either watering your growth or slowly suffocating your potential. Most people underestimate the influence of their circle. They think they're strong enough to stay focused no matter what, but energy is contagious. Habits are contagious. Standards are contagious. If you hang around 5 people who make excuses every time life gets hard, you will eventually become the 6th, not because you're weak, but because humans adapt to the environment they're in. If your circle normalizes quitting, complaining, procrastinating, or settling, that becomes your standard too, without you even noticing. But the opposite is also true. When you place yourself around people who expect excellence, who push themselves daily, who show discipline and hunger, you start to rise to their level. You hear different conversations. You feel a different vibration. You see different possibilities. You start thinking bigger, acting faster, believing deeper. The right circle challenges you, not out of jealousy or competition, but out of love and expectation. They see your potential and they refuse to let you treat your purpose like a hobby. They remind you of who you said you want to become, especially on the days you forget. Accountability is one of the strongest tools for transformation, but most people run from it. Why? Because accountability forces you to confront the truth. It doesn't let you hide behind excuses or play small to stay comfortable. Accountability exposes where you've fallen short, but it also holds you to a higher standard. When you know someone is going to ask you, did you show up? Did you execute? Did you honor your goals? You move differently. You think twice before wasting time.